Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dog Walk, the show where I take my two pups, Mistra and Daisy, out for a late night stroll while it's quiet, while discussing the things that have been on my mind that day, typically in a uncut, one shot, unedited, one take fashion. And with my usual rambling, I normally manage to say about 50% of what I intended to say, maybe 25 of the time, percent of the time. But hopefully, what I do get across is valuable enough to warrant your time, even if the primary purpose is to mention things that I would like my son Felix to know, either about me or about how I see the world. And sorry, I am a little bit distracted because the girls managed to completely tangle me right off the bat. So my apologies for the camera right now. It's still tangled. Okay, let's go. Thank God I studied knot theory in university. And yes, that is actually a thing. It's a domain of mathematics that has a surprising amount of applications. Everything from DNA to biological computing, and anyway, I won't get into that because today is part 3 in the multi-part series that I started, where first I examine the before I get into that, well, actually, no, I'll say part 3 in the series that I have started, where today I will be discussing my vision of a future economical system that would make a little bit more sense after having previously discussed in the last episode an inkling or a start of a shell of an idea on a revised political system, or at least a revised application of democracy. And previously to that, I had discussed how people need to start to make decisions in a more 4D manner, taking into consideration time as opposed to just immediate needs. I highly recommend that you watch those 2 episodes before you watch this one to better situate the argument. But also, I think I will have to be at some point doing a recap episode, how do I say, looking for the word here, an episode combining all 3 topics into one talk, I guess. Sorry, I'm missing the word that I am looking for to describe exactly what I just described. It's one of those evenings. And speaking of one of those evenings, before I get into the meat of the topic, I will say I apologize. I don't think I am not noticing while I am editing the subtitles all the ums and the rights and the you knows that I keep saying. Verbal tics. It's how I give my brain the time to process and determine the next thing that I want to say. I am a big introvert and am not used to working at the speed of speech. I'm used to working at the speed of thought or of my keyboard, which is quite different. So I'm finding it a little bit difficult to keep my thoughts organized and flowing at this different pace. And also, I don't know if it buys me a little bit of sympathy if I mention that English is actually not my first language, right? So that's another small excuse I can use to try to gain a little bit of sympathy from you and understanding as I work on correcting or getting rid of these verbal tics as much as possible. So now we can actually talk about what I said, what I want to say about the economy. There's two ways or two different segments, I guess, that I would like to discuss. There is sort of a transition period that would be required because the world works a certain way, and you can't just burn it all down and immediately reset tomorrow, right? So there has to be a transition. But really, what I want to start to think about and open the discussion on is more of the quote-unquote end state. And to reach that end state, there's several let's go this way. There are several prerequisites that will need to be met before we can even think about it. But I think it's good to kind of see it, or at least think about it, because I do believe that these prerequisites will eventually be met. And the sooner we start to think slash philosophize about something, the sooner we can... Oh, Miska, wait for Daisy. No, Daisy's just sniffing around. And the sooner we start to think about it, the better we can understand it, and the better prepared we can be for it when it becomes reality. As opposed to trying to, philosophize or understand and rationalize something after the fact. It's always good when you can think about it beforehand. So, all of that being said, I'm not quite sure which one of those two I'm going to start with. But before I get to that, I need to lay the groundwork with a quick summary of the first two episodes, or the first two topics. And I will also say that everything, including what I mentioned in the first two topics, is only supported, or can only happen, I guess, if it's supported by a tipping point being reached of a reduction in general selfishness in the general population. I'll say it that way. Basically, going back to the point I've mentioned several times about people increasing their in-groups and shrinking the out-group. So the first thing that I mentioned is for the living, and that is related to people not just taking actions, making decisions in order to maximize their own benefit, their own profit, or even their own enjoyment in the immediate term, and starting to think a little bit more about what's coming, thinking about the future, not just right now. Many examples of that, right, including talking about global warming considerations, or waste, etc. There's several reasons why we need to do that. But even if you're just thinking about it at a purely utilitarian level, or thinking about it as I want to maximize how much good I do in the world. Let's say you're one of those people. Well, when you really think about it, let's say you want to redistribute wealth right now, or you want to do something that's never mind. I won't give examples, it'll take too long. What I want to say is, when you really think about it, the best way to do something that's good for humankind is not necessarily to give to, or to increase what's good for the 7 billion people that live today. What's maybe better is to consider what will be good for the untold billions of people that will live tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. Oh, Misa business, and I need to fix Daisy's collar, so I will be right back.